Hello everyone, welcome back to Community of Writers. I'm your host, Anthony Slovak, and with me today is Kristen Nelson. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here. Kristen is a queer writer and performer, literary activist, LGBTQ activist, and community builder. She's the author of The Length of This Gap, brand new, published by Damaged Goods just this past August, and 2 chapbooks, Sometimes I Gets Lost and Is Grateful for Noises in the Dark, and Right, Dad. Kristen's poem, After the Crotalus Atrox, was anthologized in The Sonoran Desert, a literary field guide, and nominated for a 2016 Pushcart Prize by the University of Arizona Press. Now I'm told Crotalus Atrox has something to do with rattlesnakes.
It is the genus and species of the western diamondback rattlesnake.
Outstanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Almost like I researched that before this episode. So
it's not common knowledge?
No, not for me. So typically the way we start is I ask our poets, distinguished poet guests to read something from their work, and since you just published this book, maybe you could tell us a little bit about it and read something from it.
Sure. So this collection is called The Length of This Gap, and it is an attempt to measure grief. So it sort of explores all different forms of grief: loss of love, loss of life, loss of self. And I think what I'll read is the very first 3 pages, which begins the title poem of the book, The Length of This Gap. The Length of This Gap. It begins with a hummingbird drawn in pencil, my next 2 years. I am waiting for the day to come when her name is not beneath each syllable. She sad sat there, a ghost with her hard face, her threads a ripped up pillowcase. The problem with adoration, it is a little bit more than love, like bubbly water, like trying to sew the same button on a pair of $3 pants. I want to get smaller than those pants. What it feels like to thrust, the first time, a barbecue, some over-yeasted bread, her, a new girlfriend, and our cat. His body gleamed like only those who are meant for greatness do. I look at the pale ridge inside my elbow, blue vein. Maybe you can pretend that it's me walking away. I can be him sometimes, heavy and untouchable, a composite of all the people I have loved, ripping out your tongue so you can't speak. You feed me. There is no more of you. A poem is a negotiation of light and space, like a photograph of shuttered windows. Shed layers and put your body in water. It is the only option for survival. I want to cover myself in all of the pendants gifted by lovers, unicorns and wood, rose quartz and goddesses. I want to cloak myself in their protection, a cloak of gift and grieving. Your small mountain goat is bigger than a small mountain goat on this cloak. Take cards out of box. Shuffle. Pull a card. The Queen of Wands, the most sexual of all queens, her and her black cat.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, I'm struck with a lot of the images in that poem. The hummingbird in pencil, though, it's just, I don't know, maybe it was because I was on my mom's porch yesterday watching the hummingbird dart back and forth, protecting all of his precious Kool-Aid. But that one resonated with me. So I think I may have mentioned to you that I poll my online students for questions and introduce them to your work, and I want to encourage them to check out the whole uncensored version of Kristen Nelson in the new book. But they did have some questions here
I'd love to answer them.
So this one comes from one of my students, and they say, is there usually a place to network personally with local poets?
So I'm excited about this question because Tucson is rich. Tucson is rich with literary community. There's so much going on here. And I feel so often there's this town and gown divide that happens between PCC and the town of Tucson, that happens between the U of A and the town of Tucson. It's this separation, this distance. but there's so much. So I'm going to be a little biased here, and the first organization I'm going to mention is Casa Libre. So I'm the founder and was the executive director for 13 years. That's where my bias comes from. But Casa Libre continues to thrive under the direction of poet and creator Sally Roundhouse. And so that's an opportunity to attend readings, to take workshops that are very affordable. There's always scholarships. To just be in community with other writers, to have an opportunity to listen to featured guests and visitors, but also to engage deeply with your own literary community and form your own literary community. So there's Casa Libre, there's the University of Arizona Poetry Center, there is POG, which has been a community organization that's been around for a very long time in Tucson. Core Press, which is a local feminist press, has all sorts of wonderful, wonderful programming going on, especially this year. So there's a lot going on. I would also encourage folks to take poetry classes. It's one of the best ways, you know, one of the best ways to meet other folks that are wrestling with the same things you're wrestling with.
Yeah, and in fact, even though I do teach routinely, I'm actually taking one of our Pima poetry classes this semester, and I found it's a very wonderful thing to be a student again. I
love being a student, yes.
And so I just want to maybe touch up on one thing that you mentioned before, which is, you know, you did mention sort of sometimes there is a divide, and oddly, even though this is an amazing city for writers, we sometimes like to stay in our little columns and rows, for lack of a better expression. But you, at your book launch, you had a whole sort of like multi-performance thing going on, and you know, you're really challenging us to think about poetry, I think, you know, and feel free to correct me, but I think kind of in the moment, but also as in concert with all of these other sort of arts. So can you speak a little bit about that? Sure,
yeah. I'm really excited about collaboration. It's the thing that excites me the most these days about creating artwork. I feel like we're living in a very tortured world, a very tortured society right now. And I think that coming together in community in different ways gives us an opportunity to explore our own art in collaboration with other people's artwork and experience and creation, right? So at the book launch, for the finale of the book launch, rather than just doing a straight poetry reading, I collaborated with Samantha Bunkia, who is my partner, who's a violinist, and Joanna Lynn Smith, who is an aerial silks performer. And the three of us came together and we worked on this particular piece in the book called Ghosty, which is a very, very sad piece about my father and his death. And we came together and worked for months and months on collaborating to see what can happen when you bring together violin, aerial silks, spoken word. Who knows? Right. It was an adventure. Yeah. But I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. And I just think it's poetry writing can be a lonely experience if you don't have community around you. So I'm excited about saying to other people, like, how do you interpret this? How can this influence your artwork? How can your artwork influence my artwork? And what that can do, and what kind of excitement can be generated from that space. Right.
So Kristen Nelson is issuing a challenge to to us to network more as artists.
Yes.
Right? So I don't know if that inspires you to read more from your book, but we do like to kind of go back and forth. I want to make sure you have enough time to...
I'll read one of the small pieces from Ghosty.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll say that Ghosty is also started as a collaboration with a visual artist that used to live in Tucson named Noah Satterstrom. And Noah did these beautiful, beautiful illustrations as part of the book. So this started as a collaboration with Noah.
Yeah.
So I'll just read this first section, Ghosty. The ending began with the Christmas card I got from you, your wife, and your dog 2 years ago. You were almost a ghost. Your shell was shrinking. Your wife was wide and short. You were wearing a black sweatsuit and a Santa hat. Your couch covered with stuffed animals. There was a ghost coming into the picture from the left, the kind of black smudge that paranormal TV shows use as evidence. I got your message, the darkness creeping in, and my last chance. I visited you that Christmas, you cried. You invited me back last Christmas. I did not come. Your wife invited me to watch you die in February. I came. I'll leave you hanging there. That's a 5-part piece.
It's very powerful. I mean, the resonance of the dark sweatsuit with the dark spot, and the I'm not gonna do a textual analysis of your poem. After
I wish you would.
We don't have enough time. But what I will ask is, there's obviously some story, some real life there, and so one of my students asks, does my poetry have to tell a story? And it's kind of like a 2-part question, I guess, because the other half is, can I write a poem that is almost specifically directed to one person, but others can relate to? And so how would you respond to those questions?
That's such a great question. My very quick answer to the first part of that question is no and yes. I mean, I think that when you put words on a page, the way that those words will be interpreted can sometimes be, it could be a not story, but a lot of times we bring our own experience as a reader to the page. And so we pick up that page and we create our own story. Whether or not, so I guess it's how you define story is how I would answer that question. But can you repeat the second part?
Sure, yeah. Can I write a poem that is almost specifically directed to one person, but others can still relate to?
Yes, please do. Please do write that poem. I feel like I think a lot about universality and the idea of universality in themes of poetry, in that same way that we bring our own experience to the page as readers, in the same way as we do as writers. So we sit down to write about our own experience, and I would say not to focus on who you're communicating to when you first sit down to write, but eventually when you share that work, folks will bring their own experience to it, and at that point, you're speaking to more than one person. And I feel like that's what this book is trying to do. It's a book about grief. It's a book about loss. It is deeply vulnerable. It is the most vulnerable things I've experienced in my life are in these pages. And so I feel like it is hard to put that into the world, but if you tell your story, if you share your work, if you share your vulnerability, and then open it up to other people, you will be speaking to other people.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yes, write those poems.
Yes, write
absolutely.
those poems, yes.
Well, we have a few minutes left, so I think I do want to get to one more poem, but I have maybe one more question here.
Great, yeah.
And so this one is, do you have any advice for writers, and you've mentioned this, I think a little bit, that want to use their voice to address important issues facing the community and the country? And I'll just ask that half of the question. There's more there, but you know, you talked about how the poet, you know, and there's a long tradition of this, you know, where the poet is the voice, right? You know, when poets and comics have a lot in common, and comics can also be the voice of satire, but poetry can also call attention to these things. And so what advice would you have for writers who see things that disturb them? And
write about it. I mean, I think it's important for all of us to write from our own experience. I think that would be my first piece of advice, is write from your own experience. I think that trying to tell someone else's story through art can become very complicated. I think there's a very, very sensitive chasm, I'm going to call it a chasm, between appropriation and appreciation. And so I think if you're, speak from your own experience would be my first bit of advice there. And I think beyond that, I think pay attention. I think apathy is the death of our society. So pay attention, be engaged, go out into the world, have experiences, pay attention to the injustices around you, and write about it. I think it's our responsibility as artists, as folks who are awake and alive and paying attention. It is our responsibility to shine lights on the injustices we see around us. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, no, that's great. And there's a lot there, but we only have a few minutes left, so I do kind of want to maybe
end with something?
I want to end on a poem. That's my preference.
You got it. I'll end here with a short one. And this is actually from Write Dad, my first chapbook. From Write Dad. I know you, and it sucks, but with time, you have great support. No mistakes. It'll hurt, and then you'll be filled.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. It's been Community of Writers. Again, I'm Anthony Slovak. This is Kristen Nelson, and we'll see you next time.